Let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to unravel a really fascinating scientific puzzle today. How on earth did psychologists manage to actually measure the infinite complexity of human nature?
But hey, before we get into the heavy science, I want you to ask yourself a seemingly simple question. How many adjectives do you think you'd realistically need to accurately capture your entire personality? Are we talking a dozen? Maybe 100?
Well, check this out. What's absolutely wild about the number 17,953 is that back in 1936, pioneering psychologists Gordon Allport and Henry Odbert literally combed through the entire English dictionary and found exactly that many words just to describe human personality traits. That is a massive, incredibly chaotic dictionary of behavior to try and make sense of, right?
To organize all that chaos, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The personality puzzle. 2. Evolution of the theory. 3. Meet the Big Five. 4. Why personality matters. And finally 5. Personality versus character.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the personality puzzle.
You know, the very word we use for personality has a pretty revealing origin. Persona actually derives from the Latin word for a theatrical mask. The famous psychologist Carl Jung warned that we often wear this persona just to appear more socially desirable. It acts as a mask, and it can make it incredibly tricky for researchers to measure our true underlying personality, rather than just, the role we're playing at work or when hanging out with a new group of friends.
Which brings us to Section 2, evolution of the theory.
So how do we measure that true unmasked self? It all starts with Gordon Allport. His early attempts to categorize all those thousands of dictionary words really laid the bedrock for modern assessments. He proposed that traits govern us in a hierarchy, basically sorting them into cardinal, central, and secondary dimensions. It was the first huge scientific step toward looking at traits as deeply ingrained habits.
From there, it's like a giant statistical funnel. Decades of intense analysis continuously whittled those thousands of words down. In the 1940s, Raymond Cattell reduced them to 16 factors. Then by 1958, while studying Air Force officers, Toops and Crystal derived 5 core factors. And finally, in 1985, Costa and McRae cemented the modern, widely accepted Big Five model. It's just an incredible story of taking pure human complexity and distilling it down into clean scientific measurement.
Moving right along to Section 3, Meet the Big Five.
The absolute easiest way to remember these traits is through the super intuitive acronym OCEAN. This represents the most widely accepted model of personality in academia today, and the crazy part is, it actually holds up across totally different ages and cultures all over the world.
Our first trait, openness to experience, separates folks who are highly imaginative, insightful, and culturally curious from those who lean a bit more rigid or conventional. Basically, if you love deep aesthetics and tossing around complex ideas, you're definitely going to score high here.
Next up is conscientiousness. Here, we're looking at a stark contrast between someone who's highly prepared, self-disciplined, and super reliable versus someone who might be, a little messy or prone to spontaneous, impulsive decisions. What's really interesting is that research actually shows this specific trait generally increases as we age and mature.
Then we've got extroversion. This gauges your level of assertiveness, warmth, and just general positive energy in social situations. It compares your highly sociable, excitement-seeking individual to someone who naturally prefers to be a bit more aloof, shy, and reserved.
Agreeableness highlights how nurturing, collaborative, and friendly you are. Think of it as the complete opposite of being antagonistic or constantly looking for faults in others. Ultimately, it's a measure of how well we harmonize with the people around us.
Finally, neuroticism, which is sometimes referred to as negative emotionality. This one measures your emotional instability. It shows the difference between someone who's easily distressed, anxious, or fearful, compared to someone who manages to remain confident, calm, and well-adjusted under pressure.
So, Section 4, Why Personality Matters.
Now, you might be wondering why psychologists spend over half a century hunting for these 5 specific traits. Well, it's because the Big Five are profoundly important for predicting actual real-world life outcomes. We're talking about forecasting your academic success, your learning style, how smoothly you'll transition into certain careers, and even your clinical health. For instance, high neuroticism frequently precedes the development of common mental health disorders. It's a remarkably powerful predictive tool.
And this is a really crucial takeaway here. You shouldn't feel boxed in. Psychologists heavily emphasize that these traits exist on a fluid continuum. You aren't just a binary introvert or extrovert. We all exhibit a unique blend of these characteristics depending on our current circumstances and our environment.
And that brings us to our final section. Number 5, personality versus character.
Because biological traits can sometimes feel, a bit deterministic, like you're just stuck with whatever your baseline is, it's super important to understand the deeply empowering difference between these two concepts. See, while your personality is that natural biological baseline, basically how you behave on autopilot, your character represents who you actually aspire to be. It's built through deliberate moral and ethical choices completely separate from your natural impulses.
I really love this perspective from the Yale School of Medicine. They note that character is dynamic and something we work toward, a goal to pursue. It's a great reminder that even if you naturally score high on introversion or neuroticism, you are not trapped by that. You can leverage your intellect and your motivation to actively build strong character. It's a lifelong, dynamic pursuit of justice, equity, and harmony.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought. Moving forward, are you going to let your baseline, unexamined personality define you? Will you just hide behind that theatrical persona you present to the world? Or will you take control and actively shape the character you build?